Hope is a Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. Given to you by ELA on the Move. This was published in 1891. Right, let's get right into it. The theme of the poem, hope, obviously. Hope is in all human beings, metaphorically speaking, of course. It helps us through the toughest situations. The soul is hope's home. You just listen and you will hear it. Not only just in the poem, but in a sense that if you dig deep into that metaphorically speaking thought process, you'll hear that the soul is hope's home. That first line is also the title. Dickinson didn't give titles to her poems. That's why it says 314. She numbered them. But that first line, hope is a thing with feathers, indicates the word feather. A feather is light. It's the soul, but it's strong in flight. It's the strength hope has. So they all come together to make that thing. You'll also note that hope is put into quotation marks. Emily Dickinson tends to be different with her punctuation, so you'll also note the comma near the end. The one comma, the only comma. All right, let's take a look at our figurative language. We have metaphors, personification, imagery, repetition, assonance, and consonants. We'll take a look at the rhyme scheme. We'll come back and talk about the figurative language and how it affects the poem. We'll also tackle tone, how to find it inside the poem. Right, let's get started with the metaphors. Again, let's look at that first line. The quotation marks around the word hope. The word hope added to a thing with feathers. It's saying the word is, indicating that it is a metaphor. And in this case, it is an extended metaphor throughout the poem that pulls it all together. The metaphor meaning that the hope is a bird. Personification. Take a look at the second line, that perches in the soul. In this case, hope is perching. Hope cannot perch, therefore it's giving hope human-like qualities and making it personification. In line 3, you'll note that hope is singing. Again, hope is given human-like qualities. Line 4, it never stops. Again, human-like qualities. So, in a sense, an extended version of a personification all through the poem, because it all comes back to the word hope and personifying hope. The imagery throughout the poem is broad, but we'll narrow in a few and kind of look at those. The repetition. Let's look at the assonance inside of it. If you go over to line 9, I've heard it in the chillest land. A great example of those short I's in there. Accented. Used well, it lends itself to the musical qualities of her poem, for which is used or has been used many times in music. Right, take a look at the consonants in line 3 and sings the tune without the words. Note the TH, the T's. They're going to stand out. Again, lending itself to that musical quality. All right, let's come back to our imagery inside the poem. From everything to all the different five senses that you find when you're looking at imagery. Remember, it's not always just about sight. Line 3, when it says without the words, something you're hearing, you picture that in your mind. You picture the song that's being hummed or kind of in your brain, going without music. The gale, right? You can feel the wind blowing, the storm, the abashed bird, the chillest land. All these words lend themselves to the image that it puts in your brain, where these going back and forth, up and down inside the poem with hope. 1 minute it's singing, and the next minute it's abashed, and then chillest, going back and forth. We'll look at that in just a second. When we look more at the tone. The repetition, notice and 4 times, 4 lines with and then that it's used 3 times. That repetition lends itself, again, making that musical quality. You'll also note that there's a point in the poem where it tends to get more personal. It's the first time you see the word I in the poem, indicating that it's targeting personal level. Dickinson turning the poem around and pointing it at herself in that respect. Right? Take a look at the ending. Yet never, notice the negative word, in extremity, capitalized with the comma, it asked a crumb of me. Yet hope doesn't ask for anything back in return. It never does. It gives and it gives and it gives, but it never takes. It's that emphasis on, it being infinite, on it being everlasting. If you go back to line 4 where it says, and never stops at all, it's the same thing. At all indicating infinite, that everlasting, it can't be stopped. Hope is going to keep going no matter what. And then back in the ending, it comes back and reminds you of that, emphasizes that it never asked a crumb of me. Again, being personal, it ends on a personal word. All right, the rhyme scheme being different in each stanza, important to note. You want to hear that, and like said before, it's been used in so many different versions of being in a choir or used in a song. So she chose the pattern she did. All right, let's take a look at the second stanza, since we have already looked quite a bit at the first stanza. In the second stanza, let's point out that line 6, and soar must be the storm. You know, our trials in life, we all have strife. Everybody has problems. Everybody has issues. Line 7, that could abash the little bird. You know, hope's not giving up. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep trying. And later, remember, it's going to remind us that it never asked for anything back. And line 8, that kept so many warm. You know, that word warm, it just talked about abashing the little bird, but now it's talking about warm. No matter what, it still sings. Just like hope goes on, even in the worst situations. You know, analyzing each section of the poem, but also analyzing each poem going back and forth. That's important to note. All right, next up, let's take a look at tone just for a second. Well, obviously, it's hopeful. It's the first word that easily comes to mind. It creates hope in the mind. It's calm. Oh, wait, is it calm? You know, it has this up and down feeling, this turbulent hope, so to speak. If you look at an example, line 5, you know, sweetest in the gale. But, you know, the gale is the strong storm, but yet, and sore must be the storm. So sore, you know, we went from sweetest to sore, and then back down again, abashed the little bird, and then back up, it kept us warm. And then back down, the chillest land, the strangest sea, and yet never asked a crumb of me. So it almost has this calming turbulence going on throughout the poem. This definite feeling of calmness, but yet it makes a point to know that those worries, those strife, those chaotic times in life come with it. All right. Don't forget, we need to, you know, make sure we relate back the figurative language and how it affects the poem. Dickinson likes to compare abstract to concrete ideas. That's kind of her thing. She does it often. You'll see a lot of poets who use nature as a metaphor in their poems. Do that quite often with, in this case, you know, hope, the abstract, with the concrete idea being the feathers, the bird in flight, and it's perching in your soul. You'll notice that when Dickinson writes, you'll find that she does that often. Just a little note, it is true that you can sing all of Dickinson's poems to Amazing Grace. My students can vouch for it, for sure. You can also see the joy in thinking that perhaps she put all those dashes in there so we would give dramatic pauses and emphasis to words. So make sure you note when she does that. You know, we talked about the musical quality to it, but maybe even she put those there for that dramatic pause. What do we pair this with? There are many you could do. You could go the dystopian route with Anthem or Fahrenheit 451. You could pair it with Scarlet Letter or even A Night to Remember with Titanic, where they had a tremendous amount of hope. Frankenstein's not a bad one. Back to the dystopian, if you want to do a short story. Harrison Bergeron is a fabulous story of hope. Several of these stories have a, you know, not so good ending, but the students don't know that before they get to that point. So the poem is a great middle of the book stopping point. If you found this video helpful, hit like, hit subscribe to help students and teachers out, and as well, teachers helping teachers out.